There's a growing but often overlooked urban-rural divide in Alberta. Let's talk about what's driving it. I'm Max Penner, and this is Roughneck Radio. Before I begin, if you like this video and you like the channel so far, please hit that like and subscribe button. I've just started, so it's a little small right now, but I'm hoping to grow it a bit bigger because I will be talking more on provincial issues, municipal issues, more Calgary focused, but I will do a bit more for other cities, and federal issues. So if you want to see more of that, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification too, so you get a notification when I post. And YouTube also tends to not like conservative influencers like myself and others like the National Telegraph and Northern Perspectives, so we don't really get on the algorithm that much unless you're subscribed or you watch political content that's related to this.
Naughty, naughty, YouTube.
Anyway, into the video. So what does urban-rural divide mean? Well, in summary, it's the differing views and representation between the countryside and city citizens. It's not about rural folks hating city folks, or vice versa necessarily, but it's about a growing shift in political priorities, representation, and government overreach. You see, in our Westminster parliamentary system, the size of the riding depends upon the population. The more people, the smaller the riding. The fewer the people, the bigger the riding. That's why we get areas like Calgary and Edmonton with multiple small ridings, while rural MLAs have massive regions with fewer people, but just as much, if not more, economic importance. That's how we get maps like this, where a dense patch of city ridings can outweigh huge rural regions. In our system, each riding only counts for one seat. It doesn't matter if the candidate wins by 100 votes or 100,000. What matters is winning the riding. Every vote does count, though, as we've seen in Terrebonne, even though there have been controversies where some voters raise questions, but that's a topic for another day. At the federal level, this is why you see Western Canadians often feeling ignored. Cities like Toronto and Montreal have so many ridings that the elections are often decided before votes are even counted west of Manitoba. But if the Conservatives had flipped lower mainland BC, they would have had a majority government, but the regions lean heavily left, making it a tough battleground. Now, back to Alberta. Rural Alberta isn't just picturesque, it drives the economy. Oil and gas, farming, ranching, it's where the real work gets done. Just look how much of Alberta's GDP comes from these sectors. And out there, trucks and work vehicles aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. Urban Alberta's got its own strengths. Tech, services, healthcare, but it's also got its own issues. Cost of living, infrastructure strain, and bloated city budgets. They also play a big role in the economy, however, but also have a lot more bureaucracy, left-leaning politics, and policies that don't always reflect the values or needs of rural communities. It's also a lot more crowded and noisy, and let's be honest, pretty filthy. Now don't get me wrong, we're all Albertans. The cities and the countryside both play a big part, but when only one side is being heard, that's when problems start. There, now I have better lighting anyway. Let's talk about how this affects people. With more and more Easterners coming to the province, they tend to settle in urban centers, which where they're from naturally lean more progressive / left-wing. And slowly but surely this is making our urban centers more and more left-leaning. This is also partly due to the NDP base being in urban centers, which is who they cater to. The NDP base is concentrated in cities, and they appeal to large public sector unions, post-secondary students, and progressive advocacy groups, and hipsters, which is reflected in its policies. They're not inherently bad, every party has a base. But when you're running the party like Naheed Nenshi is, you're focusing only on one part of the province. More on that later. While rural Alberta, on the other hand, is more conservative leaning due to farmers, ranchers, oil and gas workers, and landowners, and small towns full of hardworking people. Now, I'm not saying city folks don't work hard. They do, but the lifestyles, industries, and values are often vary from really different to somewhat different from rural Alberta. Now, unlike the Nenshi NDP, the UCP is aiming on catering to all Albertans, whether you're rural, urban, in the sky, or living in a bunker. They are going to cater to you. Now, of course, there are some valid criticisms of the Smith UCP, but my personal criticism is they just haven't gotten stuff done as fast as they should have. Like, for example, tax cuts and the provincial police force, which is obviously coming into effect now after that was announced, and an Alberta pension plan, which is a part of the Alberta Next panel, but I'll have to see how far that goes. Although the promised tax cuts began to be rolled out recently, and the provincial police force was announced, as I just said, which is all very good. Now, I'm not saying that I don't support the UCP. Of course I do. I'm a conservative, and they represent my values best. But I'm just saying I would like to see them speed up a little bit, even though they do have a lot on their plate right now, but they can still do a little bit of speeding up. Now back to what I was saying earlier. Since the NDP base is in the cities, and this is to all NDP voters, urban and rural, since their policies and their leader is focused on the urban population centers, don't expect them to do what's best for the province. Expect them to do what's best for their interests and ties to unions, bureaucracies, and other levels of government. In the only NDP term we've ever had in our province, which was under Rachel Notley, from 2015 to 2019, urban-rural divide was much bigger than it is now because they did things that benefited big government, like the introduction of the provincial carbon tax under Notley, which hit rural businesses and energy producers especially hard. And if you look at the last election, both Calgary and Edmonton, the NDP took almost all the seats, and actually all the seats in Edmonton, even though last election they took all the seats, but I'm not sure if there'll be boundary changes this election. We'll have to see, but they did take all the seats in the 2023 election. Now, with Naheed Nenshi as leader, this is more clear than ever. He is running the party campaign like he did his municipal campaign when he became the mayor of Calgary. He is banking on the same downtown voter base that helped him win as mayor and ignoring the rest of the province. That just shows you who they're really catering to. That strategy might win him Edmonton and Calgary, but not Alberta. Although I think it's unlikely he would win much of Calgary since we ourselves got an insight to what he was like for 11 years, but we'll have to see what happens. Now let's talk about the economic disconnect between the quote-unquote two Albertas. This has a lot more to do with the federal government because of the carbon tax hits rural workers way harder than city workers, because most of them are driving for most of their work life with gas or diesel trucks, which aren't always the most fuel efficient. Mark Carney, on his first day as Prime Minister, lowered the price to $0, kept the law and kept the industrial carbon tax, and is wanting to implement a shadow carbon tax that'll be even higher than Trudeau's experiment. Now you might be saying, Max, you're dumb. Mark Carney got rid of the carbon tax. He signed his little order in council. And I would say that is false. When Carney did his little Trump cosplay inside that order in council, it said something like, I hereby suggest something to $0, which, if you don't know, to repeal a law, you have to go through Parliament. You can't do that with an order in council. Now, the Libs know the Tories would vote to repeal it, and the NDP, with Jagmeet Singh gone, and the Bloc, who knows what they'll do. But they know that it would probably be voted to scrap the law, and Carney doesn't want that because with his little thing, he can quietly increase the tax again. Now, another factor of this economic disconnect is the Liberal government's ridiculous plan to mandate EVs by 2035. Try hauling gear to a rig site in -30 with no charging stations. It'd be impossible, ridiculous, and the national energy grid would collapse. Our society is based off oil and gas, which includes our vehicles, and you can't get rid of that. Big business and big government bureaucrats agree with these bans and taxes, however, because it pads their wallets with sweet, sweet cash. The NDP also does stuff like this. They claim to be a quote-unquote party of the working class, but they're against coal mining, oil and gas, which completely contradicts the platform, because imagine voting for a party of the working class and then they scrap your job. It's ridiculous. And if they did ban those sectors, it would completely scrap most of the jobs in our province. And God forbid if they win a provincial election, which they won't, people like Roughneck treat energy workers like villains, and he is all for Ottawa's ban on production and conventional energy. And all these regulations come from people in coats and ties who have never gotten their hands greasy, never touched a hammer, and never stepped foot outside the asphalt jungles where their businesses are. The progressives in the city who criticize rural folk for getting their hands dirty, even though most of them are the ones that feed us and keep the lights on. Now, another divide is what the media thinks of the folk. They favor city culture, as that is who watches them mostly, and a lot of urban people are more progressive, as we talked about earlier. Rural Alberta, on the other hand, they look at them like cowboys, truck drivers, and conspiracy theorists. Now, they will never say that stuff on air, but I can assure you that's how it comes across. Now, if you ever hear someone calling someone trailer trash, most of the people they are referring to are actually down-to-earth, hard-working people. Which I can assure you, they are down-to-earth, completely hard-working people. I know many people like that. They're awesome. Now, to wrap this up, I do want to say this again. This isn't about people hating each other, and it's not the fault of the provincial government. It's just part of a natural drift apart between rural and urban folks. At the end of the day, the UCP is really the only party trying to cater to all Albertans. And no, I am not affiliated with the UCP officially. I don't have a membership. I don't have any of that. But the reason why I say this is because they understand that a government shouldn't cater to one kind of people. They should cater to all people. And I'll link an interview that Daniel Smith did with I forgot the guy's name, but I'll link it in the description. And she goes and says this too. Like, she understands that to have a good government, you cater to all kinds of people, not just people in the cities like Roughneck's trying to do. Whether you live in a small town or big city, anywhere in between, they will cater to you. The others, they have chosen a side. The Republicans, they take the side of only separatists. The NDP, the city. The Liberals, well, the same as the NDP, although they barely exist. And the Alberta Party is too small for any significant representation at the moment, although they are teamed up with two former UCP MLAs to try and recreate the Progressive Conservative Party, but that's a different topic for another day that I will be going into eventually. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, I've actually come out with a new video suggestion form that I will leave in the pinned comment and in the description that you can suggest political topics to me and all that stuff. You can also join our new Roughneck Radio official Discord server, also linked down there. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.